Okay, so can you please explain the start of contracts? All right, so when we say the start of contract, it refers to the various ways in which a contract may come to an end, or when contract may be terminated, the obligations created by the contract. When can we say that the parties are released from the obligation to perform? As you know, contract may be discharged by frustration, it may be discharged by breach, it may be discharged by performance, it may be discharged by agreement. So for frustration, we know that where something which was not anticipated by the parties have occurred since the concluding of the contract, or as we say that there has been like a supervening event, which renders performance of the obligation under the contract radically different from what was originally agreed upon. Then the law is that the contract is said to be discharged, and then the parties are released from obligation to perform. And you notice that originally the common law did not recognize discharge by frustration. We used to have to go the absolute contract theory, meaning that if you enter into contract, you have to make provision for all that needed to be provided. Otherwise, you will not be released from the obligation to perform your contractual obligation. So this was the position of the law. But then, as you remember, subsequently, that changed. Cases like Taylor and Caldwell and so on, where we begin to see that when certain developments occurred after the contract, which is not the fault of any of the parties, and which make straight performance of the original duties of the contract impossible, the parties can be released from the contract. So frustration, one thing you should remember is that it should never be self-induced. That is, it should not be cause or should not be the fault of any of the parties. If it is the fault of any of the parties, you cannot talk about frustration. You have to look at breach as whether that particular incident can be treated as a discharge by breach. But frustration should be independent of the parties. So things like changing government policy, natural disasters, and impossibility to achieve like the purpose of the contract and so on. All those things can be treated as a frustrating event, as it were. Then the other important thing to remember is that what is the legal effect or the legal consequence of frustration? Where you come to the conclusion that the contract is frustrated, what happens to the right of the parties? Our Contract Act, Section 1, subsection 1, subsection 2, subsection 3, up to subsection 5, have actually, subsection 4 have actually modified the common law position regarding effect of frustration. And the position of our law is that where the contract is frustrated, monies which are payable will cease to be payable. That is to say that if you are required to pay something under the contract, and then the contract has become frustrated, then you don't have to pay it. You are released from that obligation. Again, where you are supposed to recover money from someone, and the contract has now become frustrated, then from that moment, you can no longer recover that money. So these are the general principles. However, where expenses have been incurred in an attempt to perform the contract before the contract became frustrated, the courts has the power to look at the circumstances of the case and make orders which it considers fair and just, so as to enable the party who had incurred expenses before the contract became frustrated to recover those expenses. So this may be that if monies have been paid to you before the contract became frustrated, you may be allowed to retain the expenses that you've incurred from that deposit. Or where no money has been paid to you, you may be permitted to actually recover it from the other party. So in all situations, the court will try and come out with a determination which is just and fair to the parties. Yeah, so you have to remember this about frustration. That's a discharge by frustration. We have discharge by breach. Discharge by breach. As far as discharge by breach is concerned, you have to remember your terms of contracts. We have what we call like the condition and warranty. Condition refers to a major term of a contract, which goes to the very root or foundation of it. And where it is breached, the innocent party is entitled to treat the contract as having been terminated or discharged. And for that matter, if we are talking about discharge of contract by breach, we must find out the breach. Does it relate to a condition? If it relates to a condition, then the breach of it can actually bring about termination of the contract. So let us keep that in mind. Then we also have what we call the actual breach or the anticipatory breach. So with respect to anticipatory breach, where the time for performance is not due, and a party who is supposed to perform actually states that he will not perform, should the day for performance actually arrive, and where party so where that is the case, then that is an instance of anticipatory breach. Now, with respect to anticipatory breach, the position of the law is that when it has, so when that is the case, feedback, then that is coming from an instance of anticipatory breach. Now, with respect to anticipatory breach, the position of the law is that when so when that is the case, feedback, then that is coming from an instance of anticipatory breach. Now, with respect to anticipatory breach, the position of the law is that when when that is the case, then that is an instance of anticipatory breach. Now, with respect to anticipatory breach, the position of the law is that. I think we are getting a very bad feedback. Getting very bad feedback. What is? I think we are getting a very bad feedback.
Yeah, that's true, my lord. Your line keeps breaking.
Is it better now? Getting very bad feedback. Okay, I put on the video. Is it better now? I think we are getting a very bad feedback.
Yeah, that's true, my lord. Your line keeps breaking.
Okay, now let me stop the. Is it better now? Let me stop the. I think very bad feedback. Okay, I put on the video. Is it better now?